Mame fa say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
Effect of sanctions which was not imposed by their government by other governments, that's their business. In any case, the Americans and the Israelis were daydreaming. They've been daydreaming for a long time. They thought that if they launch these attacks on Iran, the Iranian opposition will pour out in the numbers in the streets and in a few hours overthrow their government. Has that happened? It hasn't happened. Indeed, what is happening is that supporters of their government are pouring out in their millions, even in the face of the bombs on the streets. Yesterday, you should have seen the streets of Tehran. Hundreds of thousands of people coming out to support their government. You should have seen the streets of Isfahan and so on. Pro-government elements are those pouring out into the streets to declare support for their government and support for the Palestinian cause. It must tell you something. In Tehran, Israel warned that they would drop bombs on the scene of the protest. They didn't mind them. They went there. Israel finally dropped bombs close to the scene of the demonstration. The people did not move. They stayed there. They continued the demonstration. And you know what is interesting? The president of Iran was among the demonstrators. The Speaker of Parliament was among the demonstrators, openly. In fact, the head of Iranian intelligence was on the streets demonstrating yesterday. What does that tell you? Can Netanyahu join demonstrators on the streets of Tel Aviv? He cannot. He does not. Donald Trump, can he join demonstrators today on the streets of Washington? He would not be allowed. But this should tell you something about what is happening. Now, for those of us in Africa, and lawyer Apia Dankwa has spoken extensively about that, I only want to add just a little. You understand? You think what is happening in Iran is new? It's not new at all. Why did they kill Patrice Lumumba of the Congo, overthrow the government of Patrice Lumumba and kill him, and dissolve his body in acid, keeping his front teeth as souvenir? Why? It's for the same reason. The declassified intelligence documents of the Western countries, Belgium, USA, and so on, points clearly to the fact that Patrice Lumumba was killed because the Western intelligence was afraid that the uranium in the Congo will be handed over to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And that Patrice Lumumba was suspected to be a communist. So they overthrew his government, they executed him, removed his front teeth as souvenir, and dissolved his body in acid. That is worse than what is happening in Iran today, ally. Why? Who killed Chris Hani in South Africa? The same people who are fighting Iran today killed Chris Hani in South Africa. Who killed Samora Machel? Who killed America Cabral? Who organized the February 24, 1966 coup in Ghana? It's the same thing which is continuing to happen today. Who supported the apartheid regime in South Africa against Mandela and the ANC and so on? The same people who are waging war today. Israel, America, and their allies. They supported a system which insisted that the black man is inferior to the white man. If I lie, tell me. Who killed Salvador Allende in Chile? Who killed Salvador Allende in Chile? So what is happening has been happening throughout history. Okay? Except that in the past, they were hiding to do it. Today, they are doing it with their mask off. You understand? But why? I am confident. I am fully confident that the forces of progress The forces who believe in guarding our national sovereignty will prevail. Because after all, history has proven to us that the US and its allies are nothing but paper tigers. They have never won a war before. Never have they won a war before. Show me which war they have won. They went to Cuba, Bay of Pigs invasion. They were walloped and driven out of Cuba. And Cuba is a small country, small island country of 11 million people. They couldn't defeat the armed forces of Cuba, led by Commandant Fidel Castro. They were beaten and driven out. They tried this in Vietnam. They were walloped and driven out. They went to Afghanistan. They ran away with their tails between their legs. They went to Iraq, alleging that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. You all remember, they went to Iraq, that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. They killed 2 million people. 2 million people were killed in Iraq. At the end of it all, they turned to us and said, oh, we are sorry, we didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. After killing 2 million people, they ran out of Iraq because they were beaten. They ran out. Even Afghanistan, which is considered as an underdeveloped nation, they couldn't win the war there. Are we to talk about Vietnam? What they suffered in Vietnam? They were defeated in Vietnam. So these are paper tigers. We are not afraid of them. Nobody is afraid of them. They may kill us as individuals one by one, as they kill Patrice Lumumba and so on. But you see, the only people who get defeated are those who surrender. If you don't surrender, if you don't retreat, you would never be defeated. And I'm 100% sure that the forces of Pan-Africanism and socialism, the forces of true national independence around the world, it doesn't matter whether they are in Latin America, whether they are in Asia, or whether they are in North America or Africa, they will never surrender. Look, after they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, they burnt his books. It became a criminal offense to hold, print, or distribute Nkrumah's photographs. We didn't surrender. And that is why today, where we are sitting, Nkrumah's photograph is behind us. After the 1966 coup, perhaps all of us would have ended up in jail for sitting in front of Nkrumah's photograph. But we didn't surrender. So we continue to make gains. Today, Nkrumah's books are all over the place. We have defeated them. You understand? Today, the son of a minister of the Nkrumah government is the president of Ghana. It would not have been allowed after the 1966 coup. They banned all political parties which looked like Nkrumah's party, including the People's Popular Front. You understand? The People's Popular Front, led by Johnny Hansen and Lutrod, was banned. Today, we are back. Today, I can sit here with Nkrumah by my side here. I can read Nkrumah's books and so on. We have defeated them, and we will defeat them. We will continue to defeat them. Nothing will stop us from victory. They should not deceive themselves at all. And I stand in full solidarity, full, not half, full solidarity with the people of Iran. I stand in full solidarity with the people of Palestine. I stand in full solidarity with the people of Venezuela. This attempt to bully for some countries to dictate the path of development of other countries must come to an end. And it will come to an end. We will build that Ghana that Nkrumah dreamt of. We will build that Africa that Nkrumah dreamt of. We will build a new world in which citizens are equal, irrespective of the color of their skin. We must build that new world in which no child will go to bed on an empty stomach. We have a responsibility to build that world. And the Donald Trumps and Netanyahus cannot stop us from realizing that dream. They can kill me today, it won't stop it. They can kill as many as they want. As they killed Chris Hani, as they killed Patrice Lumumba, the struggle continues unabated until final victory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, a few comments on this discussion that we're just having. This Azuma Besori says, wish you well, but I'm always confused about the behavior of America and the allies. Can America stop Ghana from developing a car that can fly in the air without using fuel or solar? Why is it that America is always interfering in countries that are advancing to be self-independent? The other day, someone told me that Iran is finished, having been attacked by America. He said after Iran, their next stage is Egypt, and on all the Arab countries. He said that is the agenda of the war which will end Palestinian states, etc. Now, if this is the agenda of America and its allies, then we have to be careful and fight back, because America and its allies want to take control of our resources and make more slaves so that we continue to go to them for economic assistance. Just to say no to America and its allies. Azuma Besori sent that from Medina. Thank you. This is Hadi in Pig Farm says, you impose a series of sanctions on a country for nearly 5 decades, wages war against them, obstructed every avenue of improving the lives of their citizens, and assassinated their leaders in cold blood. Now you have the audacity to request assistance from the people you have deprived of a decent life for decades to aid in attacking their leader under the guise of freedom. What insolence is this? Is this not a joke? And to those so-called Muslim countries who give America the airspace to attack Iran, the Iran also have the right to attack you. And says, long live the Islamic Republic of Iran, long live Palestine. So Richard of the MPP cannot contribute without doing politics. It is a shame. That is Hadi in Pig Farm who sent that. There's Hamza in Pig Farm, Alhaji Hamza, who says, good morning. Let's ask ourselves who started this war. It is the Americans and Israel. Iran is only defending themselves, and I support them 100%. I heard people condemning Iran for the attacks in the Gulf states. I totally disagree. I totally support Iran in the regard. If Iran cannot go to America, then all Arab nations with American base, which is being used to carry out these operations, must be attacked by Iran. But in all this, I would like to praise Afghanistan and Pakistan for the support they are giving to Iran. America is only interested in oil of Iran and nothing else. We should not forget that they did the same to Libya, Iraq, and Venezuela. We must not allow them to succeed in Iran. We should be asking ourselves, what is the basis of the attacks? America should not be trusted. When America gives you something with the right hand, they will turn around and use the left to take it back. That is America for you. I was sad to see that the attacks took place when we are in the month of Ramadan. Allah Almighty is with Iran. That's Hadi in Pig Farm who sent that. So those are some of the comments that I just wanted to quickly go through before we move to the very next discussion.
Wrap up on this issue, on this particular issue.
If you want, I can introduce the next topic and then I'll give it to you.
I just want to make one point so that we don't lose the thread. You see, Comrade Kwesi Pratt made a very, very significant issue, which yesterday I also captured on TV. That 75% of Americans are against this war. So sometimes I'm unhappy when we say Americans. It is Trump. This is purely Trump's own personal madness. He did not get the permission of a Congress. He did not get approval from his own defense cabinet. Some of the generals of America have come out to condemn this. So that it was totally unnecessary and unwanted. So, you see, I don't know, but seriously, I'm beginning to question the strength of American Congress itself. Yes, because if one person, to satisfy his own personal ego, his capricious intent, can just plunge the whole country into war. Even in Ghana here, our president will be questioned if he should do that. Parliament will question him. And I don't know. That is my problem. And so I think that it is time we question their own institutions. Okay. Like the Kwesi said, American institutions are crumbling. And the force that they used to have to be able to summon. I watched 3 days today, I watched the UK Parliament. And I was happy the way the Prime Minister was being questioned.
Okay.
Can't we have that in America?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have to move on to the next discussion just to see the interesting thing about the Venezuela opposition versus Trump matter. I think it had to do with the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump says the woman should have taken the prize. You have given it to him. He
actually took it.
He took it. The woman sent it.
Yes. And the intimidation, the woman surrounded the Nobel Peace Prize to Trump.
So that's what I'm saying. This is not America. This is Trump.
Well, let's move on to two last discussions we have. Unfortunately, each of panelists will have 10 minutes to on the two issues. First, the audit report. The second one is the matter of the issue that has been raised by the minority on the use of Ghana as a base for launching an attack in Nigeria. And because of the Nigeria matter, I'll start with Richard. Richard on this one. Richard.
The foreign minister's comment. I think that following Kwesi's rendition on the first topic, I think that probably that could have just elicited some reaction and support for some of the things he said. Obviously, is very passionate about this and has been consistent. And this is where I'll agree with my brother in stating that Kwesi has been consistent over time, except that I don't know if he would regard himself a politician or not. But he's been terribly consistent. I think that it's a compliment to say. So when Kwesi was talking and narrating the reaction of Iran to his neighbors, following the usage of their bases or their country as a base to attack them, and the appreciation of their reaction, they're being justified because that's where the attack is coming from. And I was thinking about how is it that that logic will not carry through if it is said that we are allowing our space to be used as access to attack other people. And so that makes it, for me, a very dangerous disclosure. I mean, to come out. I have not listened particularly to the foreign minister in making that comment. And so, but the reports that I've read attributing to him having made that comment, either to a response to a question or voluntarily saying that, I think it's reckless if what is being reported is what he said, because there is no world in which that should come out in a conversation. But one thing I understand about the Chatham House is also that discussions there are not supposed to go out. So I don't understand how in that space, perhaps, to give him the benefit of the doubt, that rule gave him comfort to discuss that in that space. But the point is that how that came out, okay, and him even trusting, okay, in the space that he was in to discuss such a sensitive matter, for me is beyond me. It's a gross misconduct on his part. And knowing him, I don't know what would have stimulated him and gave him that comfort to have that conversation. I think it's completely unacceptable. These are things that are not talked about in public. These are not matters for ordinary consumption. And so therefore, he must have read the room, or he should read the room in having these conversations with anybody. Because this in certain contexts, this is like too much information. Nobody needs that for anything. And so I find that to be completely reckless, and I don't think that there can be any other way to describe it. If truly what is attributed to him is what the case is, and it's true that indeed that collaboration did happen, then it's put the security of the state in great jeopardy. Now, my wonder is what is being done now following that disclosure, and what if indeed that collaboration happened, what were the comforts given to Ghana, what are the terms, and what do we stand to gain in that, in terms of national security support and the capacity to be able to insulate or defend ourselves in the probably now the likely event the matter has become public conversation. I find it very, very regrettable, and I don't know what the government is doing. Perhaps we should raise some questions for the government to answer, that what is it doing about this matter? Is there any backroom engagement? Is there any undertaking to ensure and boost the national security capacity of our country to defend us more effectively against any retaliation which may probably is now probable than not may come, because we are seen as enemy combatants or aggressors of a certain enterprise that people are engaged in Nigeria. That for me is a painful point. I don't know what we're doing about that, and it worries me. At the point I called that, the minister should be let go, because this would create a certain discipline and maybe mindfulness in government, because we have seen recently even the Minister for Interior making certain comments. Yes, we know political matters and all of that, but these are not things you give flesh to in public, because we have a national framework, our constitution, that guides us toward.
Mr. Pratt?
Well, first and foremost, we have to understand that what is happening in West Asia and the Middle East is very complex. It's not simple. The contexts are many, you understand? And it has a history of at least 500 to 700 years. So to attempt to simplify it is to mislead. You cannot simplify this very complex matter. It's important for us to understand that 75% of US citizens are opposed to the war. Official statistics. 75% of US citizens are opposed to this war. They think it's senseless, it is not justified, has no merit. 75% of US citizens. Now one may ask, why? Even before we answer the question why, yesterday, the Trump administration was blaming the US media, saying that the US media is not with them, and that the US media is supporting Iran. Donald Trump took on CNN. There are even doubts about his own supporters in the media, Fox News and so on, some of the things they are putting out. You understand? This is one of the contexts that we have to grapple with when we come to analyze this situation. Now, it's important to ask a question. How come the US citizens are against this war? 75%, not 51%, 75%. How come? You see, everybody in the United States of America sees the US in decline. And the decline is obvious. On the streets of Philadelphia, you find hundreds of people, I'm not talking about tens, hundreds of people who are homeless, who are sleeping rough on the streets. They cannot feed themselves. You understand? They have no accommodation, they have no access to health care, they have no access to education. Washington, on the streets of Washington, there are thousands of homeless people on the streets of New York. Los Angeles, in California, everywhere. The American people cannot afford bread. They are dying out of hunger, starvation. They have no access to social services. This is the great America. And I heard my friend and brother Ahiagbas describe America in glowing terms. This is America. This is the true America. If you go to New York today, the subway system, which used to be the pride of New York, is in shambles. It's one of the worst subways in the world. It cannot compare to the subway in London. It cannot compare to the subway in Moscow. It cannot compare to the subway in Pyongyang. It is one of the worst. It is in shambles, complete shambles. This is the USA. You understand? Michael Moore did a documentary comparing the health system in the United States of America and the health system in Cuba. Cuba was way ahead when it came to providing for the health needs of its citizens and so on. So by every indicator, if you take the literacy rate, America is not in the top 10. Whatever social indicator you take, America is declining. Today, if you look at the industrial sector, how much manufacturing takes place in the United States of America? How much manufacturing? China has completely overtaken the United States of America in manufacturing. In fact, most manufacturing is outsourced to China. That is why the American people are waking up. They are seeing that their empire has collapsed. Not that it's collapsing, has actually collapsed. How does America maintain its apparent dominance? America maintains its apparent dominance because of this petrodollar agreement. The agreement in the past, that is changing now, which says that petroleum prices should be priced in the dollar. Because America left the gold standard a long time ago. The American dollar is no longer backed by gold. It's useless paper. America just prints the dollar. It has no backing. It left the gold standard. So what makes the American dollar useful and powerful is that the price of petroleum products are priced in the dollar. The moment we stop buying petrol in the dollar, the US currency will completely collapse. That is why America is desperate. Because today, Russia is selling its oil not in the dollar. It's selling its oil in rubles. China is selling its oil, or is trading in oil, in the yuan, not in the dollar. And many countries are beginning to follow the example, India and so on. So the US has panicked. Now, through this system, which makes the dollar the currency of preference for international trade, what the US did or continues to do is that it exports its inflation. US has a huge deficit. How does it resolve it? It just prints more paper. Paper which is not backed by anything, just prints more. And because all of us have become dependent on the dollar, that way the US is able to export its inflation. The US burdens us. The inflation we suffer here, our balance of payments problems and so on, is partly the result of US dominance, which is nothing. US dominance is not based on production, it's not based on anything. It's just based on a world system which says that we should buy petroleum products in dollars. You understand? So the people of America, the ordinary citizens, the Chicanos, the Latinos, the African Americans and so on, want to see the rebirth of the country. They want to see a country which is back in production. They want to see a country which is opening up social services for the disadvantaged and so on, rather than a country which today is spending close to $2 billion a day on the war with Iran. That is how much money the US is spending on this senseless aggression against a sovereign state. So even the citizens of the US are opposed to this war. That's one context. Let's look at another context. The Iran nuclear program did not begin with the Iranian Revolution in 1979. The nuclear program existed before the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Indeed, the nuclear program started in 1954. And a lot of people don't know this. The Iranian nuclear program started in 1954. And it started with the assistance of the United States of America. When the Iranian nuclear program started, the US provided the equipment and so on for the start of the program. In fact, the US trained more than 4,000 nuclear scientists to start the program. That program was assisted by Germany and France. They were suppliers to that program and so on. And they had no problem with the Iranian nuclear program then. Why? Because they had a puppet regime in Tehran. Okay? They began having problems with the Iranian nuclear program after 1979. And by the way, the Iranian nuclear program, when it started in 1954, under American supervision and so on, achieved 95% enrichment. 95% enrichment. The Americans had no problem with it. 95% enrichment of uranium. They had no problems with it. Okay. Now, the revolution occurred. US interest was obviously subverted because Iran became independent. Iran insisted on its sovereignty and so on. The US tried many shenanigans in order to subvert the Iranian Revolution. And one of the things they did was to provide assistance to Iraq to attack Iran. The Iraq-Iran war, don't forget it, was instigated by the US. Saddam Hussein was assisted by the US to wage war on Iran. The US was completely defeated in that war. The US and its allies were completely defeated in that war. You understand? And since then, the US and its allies have constantly been subverting the Iranian Revolution. That is part of the historical context. But more. You see, the United States of America decided that whatever it takes, it will overthrow the Iranian regime and establish a puppet regime for the only reason that it needed to control energy resources. That's the key. And you see, I don't make these as empty claims. For anybody listening to us this morning, I refer to the Cheney report of 2001. Just Google it on the internet, it will pop up, the Cheney report of 2001. When Bush was elected as president of the US in 2000, he set up the Cheney Committee to assess US energy needs and to make recommendations for resolving the problems associated with how to get US energy needs satisfied. And that is why Dick Cheney wrote the Cheney report. The Cheney Committee wrote what has now come to be known as the Cheney report, which was published in 2001. In the Cheney report, if you read the Cheney report, you are left with no doubt at all that the US ambition is to control global supply of oil. Now, what frightens me as a West African is that there's a portion of the Cheney report which says that it's becoming increasingly difficult to control West Asia, Middle East, the Gulf area. And the US needs to shift its attention to West Africa because West Africa has a huge potential for the production of gas and petroleum and so on. And that if need be, the US should use military force to maintain its control and dominance in West Africa. It's in the Cheney report. Go and read it. Google it. Read it. It's not a very fat report. Everybody can Google it and read it. You understand? So this whole aggression is motivated by the need to control the world's resources, especially in this context, oil and gas. And there's no doubt at all about it. Now, there's another context which is important and which I think we should avert our minds to. Donald Trump is elected. He assumes office. And Donald Trump says to the world that he wants the Panama Canal for the US. That he will take it by force. The Panama Canal is not in West Asia. It's not in Africa. You understand? It's in North America. Donald Trump insists on taking the Panama Canal by force. I hope you're beginning to get what I'm driving at. It doesn't end there. Donald Trump and his administration then decide that they want to take Canada. Now, how can they allow Canada to exist as an independent state? That Canada must become the 52nd state of the United States of America. And that he will stop at nothing to take Canada. What? In 2026, this was in 2025, another country wants to annex another country completely. Unbelievable. But this is a context. Donald Trump does not stop there. He says Greenland. He wants it. It should belong to the United States of America. Look at where Greenland is and look at where the United States of America is. He wants Greenland. And he says, you will sell it to me. If you refuse to sell it to me, I will take it by force. This is the mental frame. This is the mental frame. It doesn't end there. Donald Trump looks at Cuba and he says, what Cuba? This beautiful island. The most qualified person to become the president of Cuba is Marco Rubio, his foreign minister. He says, Rubio will make a fine president for Cuba. Now, if you're listening to me, are you not getting worried at this stage? Don't you see that somebody is unhinged? It's obvious that somebody is unhinged. Okay? It doesn't end there. Donald Trump wants the far right in the UK to capture power. So he sends his envoys to the UK to campaign for Nigel Farage. Openly. It doesn't end there. Donald Trump wants Macron's government to fall in France. For Marine Le Pen, the far right, to take over. And he goes to France and is actively campaigning against Macron in France. It doesn't end there. He's doing the same thing in Germany. Now, if I lie, you tell me that I lie. All the things I've said. Because these are brazen, open, and so on. You understand? Now, there is genocide in Palestine. And I dare anybody to say that there has not been genocide or there's no genocide in Palestine. 75,000 people, human beings, have been killed in Palestine. 75,000. 2/3 of them, women and children. It is the Trump administration who supplies the weapons for Israel to commit that genocide. Donald Trump intervenes and says that there's a ceasefire. Now we need a board of peace. Who are the members of the board of peace? Donald Trump, who supplied the weapons which were used to commit the genocide, is chairman of the board. Unbelievable, but it is true. Netanyahu, the architect of the genocide, is a member of the board of peace in Gaza. There is not one single Palestinian on the board. Not one single Palestinian on the board. And we are sitting down and watching this. Unbelievable. You understand? That is one context. That's one context. Now, listen to me carefully. And Sana has said it, so my work is much easier. There is not a shred of evidence suggesting that Iran is producing a nuclear weapon. Not a shred. Iran has been open to inspections for many years. Nobody has found any evidence that Iran is producing a nuclear weapon. Iran has insisted throughout that it has a nuclear program for peaceful purposes. And the nuclear program can be used for medicine, it can be used for agriculture, it can be used for generation of electricity and so on. A nuclear program does not necessarily result in the production of a bomb. But it has many peaceful uses. In fact, Ghana had a nuclear program. Why are we not being bombed? The Atomic Energy Commission at Kwabena had a nuclear program. In fact, the enemies of Ghana and Africa, who stayed the 1966 coup, dismantled the sophisticated reactor we had there and sent it to the United States and got an inferior one in its place. But we have always had some kind of a nuclear program. There's a nuclear department in the Atomic Energy Commission. It is used for radiation. So there's a nuclear authority now. Yes. It's used for radiation in order to minimize or prevent post-harvest losses of cowpea, of maize, and so on. It's peaceful purposes and so on. So there's not a shred of evidence that Iran is producing a nuclear weapon or is on the verge of the production of a nuclear weapon. The history is this. Over the past 11 years, Israel has constantly alleged that Iran is on the verge of the production of a nuclear weapon. My friend, unless you don't understand English, it is not possible to be on the verge of the production of anything for 11 years. I mean, if you're on the verge of the production of something, it cannot be 11 years. Indeed, Israel itself at one stage said that Iran was only weeks away from the production of a nuclear weapon. And this has continued for 11 years. There is no sign that Iran is in the process of producing a nuclear weapon. But what is interesting? What is interesting is that Israel, which has been sounding the alarm, has not just developed a nuclear weapon, developed a nuclear weapon technology, it has stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Now, what is the population of Israel? Iran is a country of close to 90 million people. Now, if a country of close to 90 million people cannot have a nuclear weapon, why should a country of less than 10 million people have stockpiles of nuclear weapons? Where is the morality? That Israel can have, but Iran cannot have. Doesn't make sense to me. But you put that aside about who can have and who cannot have. Iran has persistently assured the world that it will never produce a nuclear weapon. And the supreme leader of Iran, who was killed on the first day of this operation, actually has issued a fatwa, saying that the production and possession of nuclear weapons is a crime against God. Now tell me the justification for attacking Iran. The man they killed on the first day is the man who for 40 years, or 30 years, has prevented his country from producing a nuclear weapon, has insisted that the production of a nuclear weapon is a crime against God. Show me the justification. Tell me where the justification is for killing him and for embarking on this reckless war, reckless adventure, which is going to affect all of us. You understand? Now, there are some things which are most instructive. You know, the United States of America went into Venezuela, and all of you have spoken about it already. And they captured the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. They kidnapped him and took him to the US. And then issued an edict which simply says that Venezuelan oil now belongs to the US. They said it openly, they didn't hide it. We've taken your president, your oil now belongs to us. To the extent that Donald Trump actually announces that all companies seeking to do business with Venezuela on oil should come to him. They shouldn't go to Venezuela. I mean, can you believe this? That we wake up one morning and some country comes to capture our president, I'm talking about Ghana, and says that if you want to do business in gold with Ghana, don't go to Ghana, come to me. Who can accept that? But Donald Trump did that. Says, don't negotiate with the Venezuelan authorities, come to me. And so on. You understand? And it gets worse. The assumption is that Donald Trump and the West genuinely believe that the last elections in Venezuela, the results were stolen. Let us grant them that. So, if they want to bring about regime change in Venezuela, I would hope and think that the objective would be to restore the choice of the Venezuelan people according to them. They removed Maduro and said, no, we don't want to deal with the opposition. Richard, I hope you're listening. Said, we don't want to deal with the opposition. And then the question is, why don't you want to deal with the opposition? Then Donald Trump provides the answer. He says the opposition in Venezuela is not credible. The people don't trust it. They don't respect the opposition. So if the opposition in Venezuela is not respected by the Venezuelan people, it's not credible in the eyes of the Venezuelan people, they don't trust it, how can you then claim that they won the election? How can you then make that claim? But that's the claim they have made, and so on. So they've launched this aggression, naked, blatant, foolish aggression against Iran. And I am 100% convinced that the objective of this aggression is once more to grab resources, to steal resources. You understand? That's the objective. They've launched this. And then they turn around and say, yes, we are killing your school children, we are bombing your infrastructure and so on, but we decide how you respond to our aggression. Don't attack our bases in the Gulf state. What madness is that? These are the bases which are being used to attack Iran. They become legitimate targets for Iran. And Iran has said that it respects its neighbors, has a lot of respect for its neighbors, and that it doesn't want to go to war with its neighbors. The president of Iran has been at pains to explain how relations with the Gulf, improved relations with the Gulf states, would inure to the benefit of the Iranian people. But Iran says that for as long as we are launching attacks from there, For as long as you are destroying our economy from there, from the bases there, they are legitimate targets. And we will bomb them in order to stop your recklessness. What is wrong with that? So Iran has been very careful. It's not attacking civilian installations. It's not attacking schools as the US and Israel is doing and so on. It is focused on attacking military installations. Yes, in one of those attacks, a hotel was hit. The hotel was hit because when the US base was hit, their soldiers ran to go and hide in the hotel. The hotel then became a legitimate target. Some airports have been hit. If you use your airport in order to attack another country, it becomes a legitimate target. No doubt at all about it. Okay? So I think it's important to understand this. Now, when this aggression started, Donald Trump said it was going to last 2 days. 2 days. 48 hours. And then he came back and said, no, it will go for a third day. Third day. And then he came back and said, no, it will go for 1 week. And then came back and said, no, not 1 week, 2 weeks. And then, you know what they said? That now it will go on for as long as it takes. Okay? Now that has also been revised. Now what they're saying is that they have almost completed their assignment. They have achieved their objective. They've bombed 15,000 targets in Iran. That the Iranian Navy has been completely decimated and so on. So we should relax. Very soon, the war would come to an end. How soon? They can't say. Because as Trump himself admitted, they did not expect this level of sophistication from Iran. Look, since this war started, yesterday was the first day that Iran used its one of its advanced weapons, a hypersonic missile. Hypersonic missile. One was used yesterday. Just one was used yesterday. And Iran has told us from the very beginning that they have more sophisticated weapons, but they do not want to escalate. So they are using unmanned drones and ballistic missiles and so on. And then the more sophisticated ones have been reserved. Yesterday was the first time they used a hypersonic weapon. How many do they have? We don't know. Do they have weapons which are more advanced than the hypersonic weapons? We don't know. They decide what to do and how to intervene in this war. And I think that the whole world, including the American establishment, is completely surprised. They are shaking. They are shaking. They want a way out of this war. Iran says, nobody decides for us when this war ends. You started it, but we will finish it. And Iran is saying that until our objectives have been achieved, we are not backing out of this war. What are the objectives? A guarantee that you will never again wage this unjustified war against us. A guarantee that we'll be allowed to develop in peace and so on. Now listen, one of the so-called justifications for this attack is that Iranian citizens were protesting against hardship. Who am I to criticize Iranian citizens for protesting in their own country? It's their right. We insist on the right to protest against our government in Ghana. Every citizen, whether in the US, in Bahrain, or wherever, should have the right to protest against their government, even if the reasons are not justifiable. Okay? That is democracy. So I have no problem with Iranian citizens complaining about hardship and organizing demonstrations against their government. I have no problem. However, I think that there is something which does not add up. The logic is not straight. After the imposition of sanctions, these crippling sanctions on Iran, the subversion of Iran by Israel and the West, how did the citizens expect that there will be no hardship? And if there is hardship, do you blame your government or the governments which are imposing restrictions on your economy? The governments which are sabotaging your economy by imposing sanctions and so on. Who do you blame? But I don't think for the Iranian citizens. They think for themselves. If they want to blame their own government for the